For my senior thesis project, I chose to study the abortion rights and policy in Texas. My thesis statement was, throughout the paper, I have researched what abortion laws originally were, what they have evolved to, and what they are likely to become for women here in the seemingly very near future, while also examining the effects these new laws have on women in Texas. Why am I so passionate about this choice? While abortion is not a choice I would make personally at this point in my life, I feel it is a choice that women are entitled to. I am a young woman, therefore I can understand how it might be the right choice for some and do not feel they should have the decision governed for them. It's their body, therefore it should be their choice. However, I think all information needs to be provided in order to make the most informed decision possible for all parties involved. Throughout my research, I was horrified to find how hard it was to find definitive information for women regarding what the actual laws are for women in Texas regarding abortion. The complexity of the issue is not lost on me. Separation between church and state is an issue that dates back centuries, and people have struggled with for a long time regarding where the line actually is. Because it is such a complex issue, it needs to be looked at from many different angles, including personal, lawful, and religious perspectives that otherwise may not have been included. For this thesis, I will evaluate how to apply two of my three university concentrations, which include organizational leadership, communication studies, and mathematics. The two concentrations I will be applying are communication studies and organizational leadership. Communication studies will be the most important aspect, I believe, as it will allow the necessary facilitation to communicate to women what their rights actually are and what they are entitled to under the law and choose to do with their bodies. Organizational leadership will allow a perspective as to how to unite women to become empowered to make the most educated decision possible. Essentially, I will study how to effectively communicate the policy as it stands through my experience in communication studies, while also explaining it in a way that is empowering using my organizational leadership discipline. As restrictions and guidelines tighten on Planned Parenthood and similar institutions, more and more women are left without safe, viable medical options. With this being said, the concern is where desperate women may turn in order to obtain an illegal abortion. According to Reasons U.S. Women Have Abortions, Quantitative and Qualitative Perspectives, more and more women in a survey conducted in 2004 were found that 74% of women cited work or inability to care for dependents as the leading cause to seek abortion. 73% of the women also claimed they could not afford a child at the time. More guidelines and restrictions led to women becoming more desperate and seeking out dangerous alternatives in order to seek out an abortion. The first landmark case regarding abortion was Roe versus Wade. It was decided on January 22, 1973. It determined whether abortion was essentially constitutional or not in the state of Texas. The argument was Texas was trying to make it unlawful for a woman to get an abortion unless the mother herself was endangered by the pregnancy. Their argument was that the fetus itself was still considered a fetus and was entitled to due process under the 14th Amendment. This continues to be the argument of many activists to this day. Because there is a debate surrounding religion as to when life actually begins, most can't decide the exact moment life is conceived. Some believe it is from the moment the egg is fertilized, and even as extreme as when the fetus takes its first breath on its own. The massive debate involving so many aspects is what makes it such a complex and unique scenario. Overall, the verdict was that the right of privacy protects women's freedom to choose abortion if that should be the choice that they find best for themselves. The next milestone regarding the abortion issue in Texas came in July of 2013. It was then that a bill was introduced restricting access to medical abortions to 26 million Americans, according to the U.S. National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health, in an article titled "The Public Health Threat of Anti-Abortion Legislation." The article further explains that this is one of the most restrictive laws passed in the country, banning most abortions after 22 weeks and limits the use of medical abortions but also contains several provisions to lead to the closure of most abortion clinics in the state. In order to meet the guidelines of this law, abortion facilities had to meet the standard of ambulatory surgery centers, or ASCs. They justified these laws under the pretense that it was increasing the safety of women and regulating Planned Parenthood centers and their protocols. However, what followed was the drastic closure of many of these clinics due to their inability and lack of funding to meet the new guidelines put into place by the government. Many of these clinics, due to their inability and lack of funding to meet the new guidelines put into place by the government, closed following this verdict. In another article titled Change in Abortion Services After Implementation of Restrictive Texas Law, published by many contributors in November of 2014, elaborated further by explaining that in May of 2013, there were 41 facilities providing abortion in Texas. By November of 2013, it had decreased to only 22. It was thought that this unforeseen closure has restricted the ability for many to receive abortions legally and are causing them to turn to homeopathic or non-traditional procedures at home due to a lack of facilities and services available to them. The impacts were insurmountable. Unfortunately, many have found that stricter abortion rights for women led to a more dangerous existence for women. The worst part is that Planned Parenthood is not just for abortions. Planned Parenthood clinics offer a multitude of resources to be utilized by both men and women. According to the Planned Parenthood website, plannedparenthood.org, they offer categories of help including information on abortion, birth control and cancer, emergency contraception, a guide to health and wellness, pregnancy tests and resources, sex and relationship information and advice, as well as STD testing. With so many Planned Parenthoods being forced to shut down across the country due to a lack of funding and such restrictive guidelines, many are being deprived of life-saving help that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. Because it is government funded, the government holds the purse strings as far as what they are willing to provide. According to Berg on PlannedParenthoodAction.org, at least 60% of Planned Parenthood patients rely on public health programs like Medicaid and Title X for their preventative and primary care. Essentially, Medicaid and other government programs reimburse Planned Parenthood for their expenses they submit to the government. The main hindrance surrounding the topic is the lack of common ground. Common ground is unable to be reached here due to the multitude of contradicting opinions regarding when life actually begins. Stricter laws are also very likely to follow. In fact, this past Friday, Iowa passed the most restrictive law in the country yet, preventing abortion past 6 weeks of contraception. As of January 1st, 2018, the following restrictions were put into place according to an article titled State Facts About Abortion in Texas by Guttmacher Institute. It stated that most women must receive state-directed counseling that includes information designed to discourage them from having an abortion and then wait 24 hours before the procedure is provided. Private insurance policies cover abortion only in cases of life endangerment unless the individual's purchase of optional rider at an additional cost. Health plans offered in the state's health exchange under the Affordable Care Act can only cover abortion if the woman's life is endangered. Medication abortions must be provided using the FDA protocol. The use of telemedicine to administer medication abortion is prohibited. The parent of a minor must consent and be notified before an abortion is provided. Public funding is available for abortion only in cases of life endangerment, rape, or incest. A woman must undergo an ultrasound at least 24 hours before obtaining an abortion, and the provider must show and describe the image to the woman. An abortion may be performed at 20 or more weeks past fertilization, 22 weeks after the woman's last menstrual period, only if the woman's life is endangered, her physical health is severely compromised, or there is a lethal fatal anomaly. The law is based on the assertion, which is non-consistent with scientific evidence and has been rejected by the medical community, that a fetus can feel pain at that point in the pregnancy. This information is not readily available. In fact, I had to search over 30 minutes in order to piece all of the information I just read to you together to find the current abortion rights for women in Texas as of January 1st, 2018. That is why I feel this research question was so fundamental. While I started out trying to address abortion policy in the state of Texas, I came across a much more complex issue through my research. While it is a very controversial topic and one that often has many emotions and opinions involved, the lack of abundancy of knowledge on such a profound topic was astonishing. I found it harder and harder to uncover legitimate data that was solely factual. While there is much campaigning and propaganda out there is very little resources available to women. With more and more legislation being campaigned for to deny women their unalienable rights as a woman, it is concerning to see. I hope that this senior thesis has opened your eyes to the issues that women face in today's society in Texas, and that it will lead to further research and communication among those rights among women.